This is
Make it plain.
Make it plain.
MIP
With Masamela Matfumo.
Mark Thompson.
Make it plain.
Get woke.
It was in Memphis, Tennessee in 1968 that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was martyred. It was also here in this city of Memphis, the Poor People's Campaign was launched. The Poor People's Campaign that is continuing today and culminating in a moral march on Washington, June 18th, this summer, just really a few weeks away. The Poor People's Campaign gathers here in Memphis for Moral Monday, which was yesterday. We were there talking once again to some of the marchers, just like we did in Los Angeles, getting their thoughts about the Poor People's Campaign today, getting their thoughts about the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and also getting their thoughts about Buffalo and the aftermath of that terrible tragedy. We'll hear today from some young people. We'll hear today from some elders who were actually here in Memphis in 1968, including one of Memphis's legendary civil rights activists, Georgia King. And the we I am speaking of, once again, joining me for our coverage today is my own son, Minra Mapfumo.
I am Reverend Andre Johnson. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. I'm senior pastor of Gifts of Life Ministries, executive director of the G-Life Outreach and Social Justice Public Advocacy Institute.
Do you feel like you are continuing Dr. King's work with the Poor People's Campaign?
I think we are. I think the last speech that he gave, he talked a lot about that. As a person who have studied and written about King, the Poor People's Campaign was major in his life. It was everything in his last months of living that he wanted to do. And we are picking up the baton and carrying it forward. The Poor People's Campaign still lives.
So, are you motivated by what happened in Buffalo to be out here today?
Well, Buffalo, Memphis, Chicago, LA, Baltimore, San Diego, Las Vegas, just keep naming cities where atrocities have happened to black people. And we cannot not be out here.
Right. Do you think there is a connection between poverty and gun violence?
I think there is a connection somewhat, because we do know that a correlation between poverty and crime. But I also think the over-proliferation of guns is an issue as well too. It is much easier to get a gun in the country to get some books. We will ban books, but we will not ban assault rifles. So I think a lot of guns are the problem, the easy availability.
My name is Emma. I'm from Little Rock, but I live here in Memphis.
Okay. So, do you have a story about poverty that brings you out here today?
Honestly, I don't have a story. I feel like I have to be here. I have a role to play.
Yeah.
Because I feel wrong not being here. I live with so many community members, brothers and sisters, family members who just are going through constant discrimination. It's 2022. Usually what is happening here feels like we're moving backwards when we need to be moving forwards. Like you said, it's always forward, not back, no step backwards or whatever. And I feel like I'm here to play a part,
Do you feel like the tragedy in Buffalo has motivated you to come out here as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with how it's been, the fact that it happened at all and how it's been handled, how it's been covered, how it's been talked about. It's been disgusting, it's awful. And I think it hasn't been talked about enough. And, it's like people are saying people are tired, but y'all are tired. We can't let this keep happening.
And do you think there is a link between poverty and gun violence in America?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm Lainey Escobar, and I am a Memphis resident. I'm Mexican.
Okay. Do you have a story about poverty that brings you out here today?
I wouldn't say extreme poverty, but I have seen it not just here in Memphis, Mexico.
Yeah.
And it's sad to see that the way children are going hungry there is also happening in the city, in a first world country. So yeah, there's definitely something wrong in the system, and we need to change it. And being out here is part of that, right?
Right.
It takes more than that.
So, with the violence that goes on in America and also goes on in Mexico, do you feel that there is a link between gun violence and poverty?
Oh yes, of course. I mean, it's known that a lot of the weapons used by cartels are taken into Mexico from the U.S. I mean, if they can do that to the country next door, they're doing it here. So it's a way to also keep us in fear by, instead of providing jobs and opportunities, they provide guns.
Where we from? This is my nephew, Mahaj Abdul-Bakir. This is my son, Brandon Davis. And I am Anthony Hardaway. We are all from Memphis, Tennessee. I'm doing this because for the generations that's coming after me, the generations that are before me, my ancestors, and the ones that are here now, this is the reason why we're doing this. It's needed.
Yeah.
Dr. King started it, and it was sung before Dr. King. So this is very important for us to continue the fight, continue the work, continue leading, and the number one thing, continue mentoring to let everybody know we are all important.
Yes, sir.
We are all great, and we are all needed in this world.
Yes, sir.
So this is what this is all about. And I'm holding up this sign. I'm a man. I wasn't born. None of us was born, but we remember the story because we're still living.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
My name is Jayani Webster, and I'm from here, Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay. Do you have a story about poverty that brings you out here?
I mean, most of the city of Memphis is living on poverty wages, and we really need to change those conditions. I grew up in poverty. I think, majority of the city doesn't make a living wage. It's time to change that.
Do you feel you are continuing the work of Dr. King?
Absolutely. I mean, the civil rights movement never ended. And so here we are today as an expression of that.
Yes.
And it's an expression of lots of different movements coming together. The women's rights movement, the LGBTQ movement, the movement to make sure that there's no more war, there's no more poverty. So I think a lot of movements are merging into one because that's what's needed today. We need to tackle everything at once instead of one issue at a time. So it's a great expression of that.
My name is Shirley Smith, and I'm from Mason, Tennessee.
So can you tell your story about marching with Dr. King?
Yes, when he marched around the Lorraine Motel, my uncle Will Yarbrough had an office right over the motel where he was actually killed. So that night we marched with him, and he was shot. That's when we was waiting to see what was going to happen, and we found out that he had passed away. But I was very much a supporter of Dr. King. I'm very much a supporter of all movements for justice. But I was only 14, but I remember that.
So do you feel you are continuing the work of Dr. King here today?
I do because the things that he taught us is still instilled in me today. He fought for justice, and he instilled that in me, and it's still in me today. And I've always been a person that believed in justice for all. So that's why I'm here today.
My name is Tydra McKenzie. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay, and what motivated you to come out here today?
Well, what personally motivated me is because I'm with the Youth Justice Action Council, and we try to stop children from ending up in youth detention centers. And we found out that one of the main causes of them ending up in those centers will be because due to poverty, they end up committing crimes like stealing from stores because they don't have the necessary food at home or the necessary things that they need. So those things they end up taking, or they end up falling to the streets for those things. So if we can stop poverty, we can stop crime.
Yes, sir. And then, so since you said that, do you believe that there is a relation between poverty and gun violence in America?
Yes, there's a great relation to poverty and gun violence. A lot of people would have never picked up a gun if they had the necessary money to not have to pick up a gun and go rob.
My name is Alana Reese Walker. I use she, they pronouns. I'm from Oregon, but I lived in Memphis for about 6 years now.
Okay.
My name is Javez, he and him pronouns. I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee. And so, yeah.
So what motivated you all to come out here today?
So we're both a part of an organization here in Memphis that's youth-led called the Youth Justice Action Council. We work with creating alternatives to youth detention centers and the juvenile justice system here in Memphis. We're trying to make it more rehabilitative and effective and aid youth instead of punish them and have punitive measures that kind of go against that.
And with me, I'm trying to change the way they do facilities because I actually been impacted because I've been in a facility. I've been abused by officers before. I actually done been a welder. That's just Trace, and so I actually just recently came from the city because, you know, with the DCS, they tell you things and then it's like they lie to you. So I had to, you know what I'm saying, make a change. So I had to come with YJAC and tell them why we want these demands and make this change.
So who are you all working with or starting to work with to help you continue your mission?
So we're working with Just City, which is another organization here in Memphis, and then Micah, which is also here. And then we were supposed to speak at the Poor People's Campaign, but one of our members who was doing an antidote wasn't able to come. But yeah, and then we're just working with other nonprofit organizations in the community itself, and we're trying to lift up those justice-impacted voices that are within this community and just like talk to the people, really work with the people.
Do you all feel that you are continuing the work of Dr. Martin Luther King?
I actually believe so because the work that we're doing is the work that where he left. We're picking up where he left off, basically.
Can you talk about what it was like in 1968?
Well, in 1968, after Dr. King's assassination, Sister Coretta, his wife, journeyed back to Memphis to lead a march. I'm one of the leader vanguards that was leading the marchers. It was a total of around 17,000 marchers down to City Hall. That's what I was doing in 1968, and also as one of the marshals, I helped to organize and mobilize marches all over Memphis and helped to assemble the marchers from Cleveland Temple to the destination where we were marching to as a part of Black Mondays.
Do you feel that you're continuing the work of Dr. King today?
Pardon?
Do you feel you are continuing the work of Dr. King today?
Oh, yeah, definitely so. Yeah, definitely so. Definitely so. And this is indeed a sacred place. This is where we would come back in the day because we could not go to places like the Peabody Hotel and other places. So definitely so. I feel a continuation of his work. But I'm so thankful how Dr. Barber helps to bring all of it together and give the people a more better understanding of what Dr. King was trying to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel a connection of continuing this work.
Georgia King, a Memphis civil rights legend. Lastly, had an opportunity to talk with a young brother of whom I'm very proud and one I'm actually honored to know, who's been continuing the work of Dr. King. You may have seen him demonstrating in Tennessee, demonstrating for civil rights, going to jail many times in the state legislature. He's now running for the state legislature in Nashville, our brother Justin Jones.
We're out here with our brother Justin Jones, who was once arrested in the state legislature. Now he's running to be in the state legislature. How's the campaign going, brother?
It's going well, trying to build people power and fight for the issues of why we're marching today. So looking forward to building that momentum and energy and to let a new generation step into their power and address the crisis that we're facing here in Tennessee.
Are you getting a good response from a lot of the voters?
Definitely, people are ready for change. They're tired of what's been happening at the legislature, the extremism, the harm to our communities, and so we have a lot of energy. Young people get involved with multiracial, intergenerational coalition of folks building power together, and so we have I'm excited.
Whatever happened with the case that they had against you? Was that disposed of or what?
Yeah, which one?
Yeah, right, right.
On my cases, I had 18 charges from the protests in 2020 that have been dismissed and then retired, and so we proved that what we did was nonviolent and just and right, and so all my cases have been dismissed, and so we're saying that they wouldn't meet with us, instead they had us arrested and brutalized, and so now instead of trying to get them to change their minds, it's time to change who's in those seats, and that's why one of the reasons why I'm running is that we are tired of begging them to hear us and arresting us for trying to be heard, and so it's time for us to step into our power and reclaim the power in that building in the people's house.
As you talk to voters, Justin, what's the issue that is most important to them here in Tennessee right now?
One of the ones I'm hearing a lot of is healthcare, is that we still haven't expanded Medicaid. We've got 300,000 people, working poor people who don't have healthcare, suffering, especially during a pandemic. We need to make sure that healthcare is a human right in Tennessee. So that's one thing I keep hearing from people as we're canvassing and talking to folks in the communities, that we need healthcare. We need to make sure that people are taken care of. And as the son of a nurse, I know how important healthcare is.
And we're out here with the Poor People's Campaign today. How big of an issue is poverty in Tennessee?
Poverty is an enormous issue. When we look at the disparities in healthcare, Tennessee is this week's going to become the first state to criminalize homelessness. And so they're going to make it a felony for people to be on public property camping homeless.
That's a bill?
That's a bill that will pass our legislature, and that's going to take effect coming up soon. And so that's a bill. So we have an issue with poverty, but instead of addressing poverty, we have Governor Lee and these extremists in the legislature waging a war on the poor in Tennessee instead of addressing the crisis of poverty.
Okay, and when's you've had the primary already?
So my primary is August 4th. The election's August 4th. August 4th is the primary. And for my race, there's no general because there's no Republicans running, but we encourage people to vote in all the elections coming up because there's two parties in power, two parties here, one that will win if we don't vote and one that will win if we do vote. And I'm running as a Democrat because we need to make sure people vote. We need to build a multiracial democracy, and we need to make sure that we have voting rights in a state where 1 in 5 black people can't vote because of felony disenfranchisement here in Tennessee.
Thanks for getting woke and listening to Make It Plain. As always, perform an act of kindness on behalf of an elder or young person. Write a letter to a sister or brother who just so happens to find her or himself incarcerated. Offer libations to the ancestors upon whose sturdy shoulders we all now stand. And above all, give thanks to the God of your understanding by whatever name you call her and him. All God asks of us is that we give each other love. Thanks for giving MIP love. And please remember to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. If all hearts and minds are clear, it has been made plain.